buzzer goes. Make sure you call me because it might not be done. Okay.
How is everybody today?
We're all good, thank you. And you?
Good.
Good.
I'm a little bit hoarse here tonight, so y'all just be patient with me.
Okay.
I had an attack of the rare disease I have, hereditary angioedema, and I ended up in ICU for 5 days because they had to intubate, and so I haven't gotten all my voice back yet.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. You're much better now. No?
Yeah, it's been 1 month, so yeah, I'm better, much better.
Oh dear.
So if I get too gruff, I'll ask for help, but I think we can get through this.
Mm-hmm.
Made it.
Yay! How was everybody's 4th?
Oh, very
busy.
good.
Busy.
Yeah. Family, friends, or just what did you do?
Family, friends.
Neighbors.
Friends,
yeah.
neighbors. Yep.
Nice.
Kids.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's the first time I've noticed it, but it shows whose mic's on and whose isn't.
Oh.
Mm.
Do y'all see that?
Kim Yothers, let us see you. She said hello.
Well, her mic's off now. Looks like it anyway. What?
I'm getting there. I'm just setting up.
Okay. Patrick,
Hello, everyone.
how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. Listen, when we get to the public comments, I may need you to help me a little bit. My mic keeps coming in and out.
Okay.
And so I get a little distorted.
Not a problem.
I think that's from somebody's mic not being muted, because you'll get feedback from other people's speakers.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm only on 5 of these a day.
So you're really the expert here on that, huh?
Afraid so, not by choice.
That's okay. That's good information for us to know. I'm trying to figure out where, oh, there it is. I was going to go, where do I mute my mic? Now I see it. Okay. The Heritage Preservation Board for July the 6th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. is now called to order. We can have roll call, Kim?
Miss Milford?
Here.
Miss Cornell? Miss Hallett?
Here.
Mr. Sprecher?
Here.
Miss Ryan.
Here.
Okay. Now we're going to go to the public comments. Is there anyone that you, Patrick, you want to handle that public comment section?
Yes, Chair, thank you. So next we'll be going to public comment. These are for any comments that are not on the agenda item, meaning these are the comments, if your comment has to related to the design guidelines, it is not this time yet. This is for comments that are not on agenda items.
And we have no one in the public attendance at this time.
Okay. Then Chair, I will close public comments if that's good with the chair.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you.
And then Pat, we're going to go to the presentation and discussion update for the guidelines. So
Yeah.
do you want to introduce and go over whatever you need to state?
Sure. So tonight we have a final draft of our design guidelines we've been working on for some time. And we have Sarah McLaughlin here and Caitlin Turstad from JMT, who have been, we've been working with them on these guidelines. And what they're going to do is just present and go through the guidelines and kind of highlight the what you have before you, and that. So I would say that they should do their presentation and then maybe let's hear the board comments if Laura, if you think that's acceptable, kind of go around and have board comments and questions for
Okay.
Sarah and Caitlin, and then take the public comment. And of course, the board, obviously, if they want to wrap up with anything, suggestions on anything that they want to comment on, question, or see, we can do that. And then after that, we'll talk about where we go from here. So with that, I'd like to have Sarah and Caitlin go ahead and present the guidelines. And I think you're going to try sharing your screen, right, Sarah?
I
So
am.
hopefully
Can you hear me? First of all, am I unmuted now? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. This is real weird. It does not matter how many video conferences I do. It is real strange. So I do want to just say that we are having some pretty serious storms rolling through here. So if you hear thunder or if I lose power, Caitlin is here to kind of take over as well. So I am gonna see if I can share my screen to let me know if you can see it. I'm basically just, that's not the right one. Oh, can we see it? The design review guideline manual? Okay. So, and which I'm sure everyone has seen by now. And my intention right now is not to go through this page by page to go over every little detail. It's to kind of take a more holistic approach and just kind of going over the guidelines and how they're used, and to really to take questions from all of you to see, you know, as your chance to kind of get some additional help. So the first thing I'm going to do, I really want to point out is this little blurb on page 7. These are guidelines. They're not the law, right? So they don't dictate solutions, and they're there to help you all and to help all of the property owners in the district come up with solutions to their projects. When you are evaluating different applications, it is my belief, and I'll get into this in a little bit when we talk about the actual guidelines, but look at the project on a whole as opposed to just what's in front of you. You want to evaluate how each project is going to affect the building as a whole. But they're guidelines. They're there to help to kind of keep some sort of consistency in your decision making, and to give you something to turn to if somebody questions your decision and say, well, it's in our guidelines. And while you all did have guidelines before, they were pretty minimal. And this full guidelines came in at 238 pages. So hopefully there's enough information in here to help everyone to get you all through some questions. Really, the first 3 chapters are background. It's not something that everyone is going to have to refer to all the time. It's something you want to read through and know that's there and understand the information that's included. But it's not something that you're going to be referring to regularly. A lot of this is also, as board members, you understand what the purpose of design guidelines are. So a lot of this is for the public as well. But I definitely read through all of this in the beginning, breaks down how we set up the guidelines. And again, a lot of this is for the public because unfortunately a lot of people, when they hear historic districts, they hear guidelines, they get really amped up, and we want them to understand that there are benefits to preservation. We're not just there trying to tell people how to do things and what to do with their property. So hopefully the public will take this and read it and take it in as well and kind of, learn some things. We have a history of the district in Tarpon Springs. It's not a whole history of the town. We only wanted to put in here what is going to be relevant to people who are using the guidelines. Do they need to know the whole district of the town? Not necessarily. Let's just give them the district, the history of the district, which all of that works to shape the guidelines, because the history shapes the building styles shape the materials shape the guidelines. So it's all interconnected that way. Going to kind of skip through this. This was Pat's idea, and I think that it was a fabulous one to put this timeline in. It kind of gives you an idea of what was going on in Tarpon Springs and what the architectural styles were at the same time. So it'll give you some context as just for your greater understanding. It'll give you some context of, okay, so in the 1920s, this was going on in Tarpon Springs, and that's why there are so many of this style of structure. So that takes up a couple of pages. Boundaries of the historic district, which I'm sure you all know, but again, a lot of this is also for the public. Information about all of you, which again, you all know this. I think most regularly, this is where you're going to start referring to these. This document is the style guide. We talk about the type of buildings and their forms versus architectural style. And we only talk about styles that are present in Tarpon Springs. So there's not going to be styles in here that are not in Tarpon Springs. That doesn't make all that much sense in the long run. Again, this is mostly for the public, information about their Florida master site files. My assumption is that most of the public does not know what that is, and they probably don't know that there is one on their building in the district. So we wanted to give them an understanding of what it is and what information they can get there, because a lot of people are not going to have a clue about what are character defining features of their building, or what are the architectural style of their building is. So if there is a form for their house, most of the forms, if they're completed close to 100%, will have this information on them. So again, this is all kind of stuff building up to the guidelines and to help them determine what to do with the guidelines. And again, I'm not going to sit here and go through, each style or each type of building, but we tried to give you as many drawings as we could, give you as many architectural vocabulary terms that we could. So when words come up and ideas come up, you'll be able to easily visualize that, because I know that not all of you have an architectural background. So we wanted to be able to make sure that this isn't written for somebody who has a master's in architecture. It's written for somebody who has no clue about architecture, or people that have some idea. So this, again, these are discussing, as far as the styles go, the forms, I'm going to skip to the styles. The styles, the drawings and the photos that you see here are mostly what we call high style. And that's like the epitome of an example of a style of a building. So just because a house is going to be a frame vernacular house, that does not mean that it's going to have all of these characteristics. If there is a house that has all of these characteristics, that would be a high style frame vernacular building. So it's unfortunately not very cookie cutter. You have to kind of look at the most, if it has 10 Queen Anne elements and 5 bungalow elements, you kind of weigh it out and see where you sit. Not everything is going to be cookie cutter, because how often does a house, a beautiful Queen Anne, come to into somebody's belonging, and then for 100 years the people keep up with it, they don't put vinyl siding on it, they don't cover up the balustrades. So it's not cookie cutter, but it'll give you enough of the ideas of the details that each style includes. So you should have an idea of what to look for. The way this is set up, the way that we set up the styles is that for most of the architectural styles, it has a diagram, and then it has a little bit of a discussion, and then common characteristics, variations within Tarpon Springs, and then photos of examples. And again, even these frame vernaculars, they're all that style, but they're all very different looking structures. They all have different characteristics. So just try to keep in mind that it's, unfortunately, it's not cookie cutter. Different kinds of vernacular. And again, the document is set up the same way for each style. I'm going to Gothic Revival. There's a couple of styles in here that there are very few examples in Tarpon Springs. This and the Neo-Byzantine, the Greek church, they're in there because they are in Tarpon Springs, but there's not a vast selection, a vast catalog of those style structures. I should do it this way instead of making everybody nauseous by scrolling through everything. More traditional, a lot of different styles. I apologize to everyone for that. Okay, so once somebody understands the style of their building, they're gonna go to the guidelines, which are very extensive because we want to cover as many different scenarios as possible, right? But we also can't paint somebody into a corner, which is where a lot of your knowledge and understanding is going to come in. We talk about the Secretary of Interior standards in the beginning, the standards for rehabilitation, a little bit about maintenance, and that goes into an appendices as well. And then we jump right into it. The electronic version will be hyperlinked. So if you're looking at the table of contents and you say, I need information about how to preserve historic significant features, you can click on that in the table of contents and it'll jump to this page in the document. So there's not going to be, obviously if you have a paper document, there's going to be flipping, but not on the electronic version. So the general guidelines are just that, they are general guidelines. And they, for the most part, apply to all different types of structures. We try to, again, as much as possible, put in best choice, good alternative, not appropriate. It's not appropriate, it's not prohibited. We can't say you're forbidden from doing something, but we can say this is not an appropriate solution. Try doing X or Y instead. We tried to give you those kind of options as often as we could. And then it just goes through the different parts of the buildings. If somebody is re-siding their house, what type of siding is acceptable? I'm going to skip to, I know windows and doors are a big, actually we can go here first to talk about massing. And again, if anybody has questions about this after, I'm happy to answer them, but just to go over a little bit, the massing and scale of new construction, I know has been something that's come up a couple of times for the board. And there's not a ratio, there's not a formula that's set that says, if the building is X feet by Y feet, the new exterior or the new output building can be X feet by Y feet. It's going to be a very visual thing. The important thing to remember there is you don't want the outbuilding to overpower the existing structure. The existing structure is the historic building, it's what was there. So anything else that goes on that piece of land needs to be secondary to the original structure. You don't want it. I know this is going to be a bad example because I know that you don't regulate paint, but you don't want somebody to put, on a property or in a parcel that has a 1-story house, you don't want somebody to put a 2-story garage and paint it bright green when the house is a 1-story brown building. There needs to be some balance between that, and it needs to be clear that this other building is secondary to the first building. What I started to say was that I'm going to skip to windows and doors because I know that is something that comes up a lot for every board that reviews applications for COAs or CAs. So the first thing that Pat and Caitlin and I had talked about this before. There's a lot of talk about vinyl windows. People always want to replace their original windows with vinyl windows. Or what's the difference between vinyl and aluminum? Why is aluminum okay, but vinyl not okay? What I want to stress is that it is more important what the window will look like in the structure than it is what the material is as an absolute bottom line. So if you're looking, this page I have up right now that has this diagram of windows that are what we call 3/1. There's 3 panes of glass on the top, 1 pane of glass on the bottom. If you have a bungalow that has all original 3/1 windows and they come to you and they say, we want to replace our windows, they're going to be 1/1 white vinyl windows. Not a great option. They come to you and say, we're going to replace them with 3/1 white vinyl, better option. Overall, how is that window going to look in the building versus the material? So for this, the makeup of the window, the number of panes, how it's designed is going to be more important than the vinyl. If you have a Queen Anne house that's, happens to be painted a darker color and somebody comes in and says, we're going to put bright white vinyl 1/1 windows in, okay, that's a problem. Maybe you do dark vinyl windows or metal windows, or ideally wood windows. But we know that people don't always want to go with the wood windows. So just, again, there are no cookie cutter answers, and the best solution I can say is to look at it as a whole. So it's not so much vinyl or, vinyl or aluminum, it's the material versus the whole of the project and the structure. Because you don't want to look at the structure and all of a sudden be like, whoa, those windows do not go with that. That's what you want to avoid. And if you can avoid that by putting in the vinyl windows with the right number of panes and the right original design, then that's better. There's just different levels, which again makes your job a little bit trickier.
Hey, Sarah.
Yeah.
I was probably one of the ones that brought up the comments about the vinyl windows the most. And I know a lot about them, but manufacturing wise, they have the same specs as an aluminum window. I was just concerned about the group having a negative impression of the vinyl when you can get the vinyl in almost any color now, any light configuration now.
Mm-hmm.
So I just didn't want to deter somebody doing a vinyl versus an aluminum when honestly the vinyl, if you can get it in the right color and the right light configuration, would be a better option than what an aluminum would be.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, vinyl windows have come a long way for sure. I mean, I have ugly 1/1 white vinyl windows in my 1951 split level that I live in. And, you know, so if I were going to replace those, I could replace them with 1/1 white vinyl. But
yeah, that's a stock window off the shelf, but anytime you're looking at a historic property, you're not going to be able to do that anyway. I mean,
right.
I could buy a maroon window in vinyl now if I want.
Right. And that's huge. That's huge. And it's not, and that's what I said to Pat. It's not so much vinyl versus aluminum. It's more of how the window looks when it's in the building.
Absolutely. I just want to make sure that we kind of, to me, they're the same. Vinyl and aluminum,
Right.
they're manufactured in United Inches and they all kind of, you can order them however. I just don't want to downplay one versus the other.
Right. No, and I didn't mean to do that. I mean, the first instinct or the first solution is if you're taking out wood windows, you should be putting wood windows back in. That's always going to be the best option. But we know. Sorry, go ahead.
I would like to ask the board to hold the comments and questions until you get through with your presentation.
Okay, so I was just going to say that the first is to always do wood windows, replace wood with wood if you can. Then if you can't, again, you know, you're evaluating the material versus the configuration of the window and the color. You want something that's going to look as close to the original as possible.
Hey, Laura, the only reason I would suggest we could ask questions as we go. If not, we're going to have to take notes and backtrack into this deck.
I know, but I'm going by the agenda, and our agenda says to let them do the presentation, then go to board comments, and then go to public comments, and then go to staff comments.
Okay.
So I'm trying to follow the guidelines of what we're supposed to do.
Okay.
I meant no offense.
And Chair, as the chair, you have the absolute right to run the meeting as you see fit. Just that agenda, those staff comments, board comments, those are more for like general comments, not reference to this. So it's up to you how you want to do the presentation, whether you want to have, but I just don't want you to think you need to be beholden to that, because that's not exactly what that means.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that feedback. Thank you very much for that feedback. Yeah, if you have to go ahead and you want to make a comment like that, Michelle, that's fine. I just didn't want it to delay the presentation and drag it out further than need be. So if you want to do that, I'll allow that.
I just was trying to save time. Sorry.
That's quite okay.
I do have other questions that I was holding. We got on that.
So go ahead and ask the questions. That's fine.
All right. Thank you.
Did you want to ask questions, or should I go on?
Michelle can ask questions if she wants to go ahead, or anyone else. Or you, Michelle, do you want to ask her a question? Okay.
That's all I had that she had covered thus far. I just had questions.
As it comes up, yeah, go ahead.
All right. Thank you.
So Sarah, go ahead and finish what you were saying on this slide and move forward.
Sure thing. So similarly, doors are another thing that I know review boards get a lot of, and doors are kind of a little bit trickier because there are not set door styles for each architectural style. It will come with an understanding of the style. Simpler the style of the building, the simpler the door you want. There are so many different types of doors: paneled doors, doors with one big window, doors with no window and all panels, and different materials. Again, you don't necessarily, if you are living in a simple, minimal traditional house, you don't want to put an ornate window or an ornate door with a huge window that's etched with, you know, all these designs on it. It's not going to go with the overall feel of the structure. So that's more of kind of understanding the styles and the more the fine-tuned characteristics of each style as far as whether they are more ornate versus not. So it's, again, I keep saying this, but it's not cookie cutter. There's no, if you have this type of style house, you have to put in this style door. Just keep in mind to look at the larger overall result of the application on the building when it's done. If it's going to throw the building off completely, then it's probably not a great idea. If you can see that that specific door on that house and look at it and say, okay, that makes sense, then it's probably okay. That's the guidance is, again, there's so many different styles of doors, and there's not really a contemporary style door or a bungalow style door. There's characteristics that make it fit for those types of houses, but again, it'll come with time and I don't want to say studying, but education. So again, there's, you know, we bundled the different topics for, you know, doors under doors, transom and side lights are going to be under doors. We tried to give you as many, you know, don't try not to do this, or this is your best option, to give you as many different opportunities to present the public with different solutions as you could. Different examples of pretty much all of the examples, the photos in the guidelines are from Tarpon Springs, which we always find to be really helpful and useful. I think there's only one photo in here that's not from Tarpon Springs, but it's good for people to understand what they're looking at. But we find that local examples are the best way to do that. Again, tried to give you as many diagrams as we can. Things can get confusing if someone is talking about a soffit or a fascia. If you don't know what that means, it's more helpful to see it drawn for both for you all and for the public. So we wanted to give you as much of that as we could squeeze in here. And we talked about a bunch of residential topics, and then we move on to commercial properties, because there obviously are commercial properties in your district as well. Kind of giving you, and this is a good example of what I was just talking about when I meant, once the project is done, if you kind of have it in your vision and you can see it when it's done, does it look like it fits, or does it not look like it fits? Because obviously on this top illustration, this does not look like an appropriate addition to this building, but the bottom one does. So you're really just look at the project holistically versus the one tiny project that's before you, if it is a small project that's before you. So there's different guidelines for commercial versus residential. There are some that carry across for both, but you know, the storefront windows you're not really going to find on residentials, upper story windows. So we tried to break it down as much as possible, and I don't think that someone is going to come to you with an application for something that is not covered in here somehow. Hopefully that is that's not going to happen because we've done a bunch of these, and so far we've had we haven't missed anything, I don't think. So lighting, and again, there's no guidebook. There's nothing that you're going to look and flip and say, oh, this is a Mediterranean revival, commercial building, and I can pick from one of these 4 light fixtures. There's going to be a learning curve, and that's okay. But I think you'll be able to tell what doesn't go I think that's an easier way to think about it. So those are the guidelines. The appendices, can be included. They're standalone also. We talk about the procedures to get a CA in Tarpon Springs, the glossary, which is a bajillion pages and has a lot of useful information. If you're flipping through a diagram and you don't know what something means or is pointing to, it's going to be in the glossary. We also talk about substitute materials, which can be really helpful. If an application is in front of you and somebody is talking about wanting to replace something and they can't find the original material, or there's some reason that they can't have the original material, this section will be helpful in guiding them towards finding something new and relevant that they can use for windows, doors, siding, all of that. And then this is just additional resources for the public, for you all, funding resources. A lot of people don't know that there are tax credits for historic properties. The historic or the National Park Service briefs are very helpful, that a lot of people, if they own a historic structure, don't even know about, but they're short documents put out by the Park Service about how to deal with different problems with historic properties. Bibliography, pretty straightforward, where we got a lot of our information. And then your ordinance. So this is, again, if something happens and your ordinance changes in 2 years, this can be easily swapped out. It's not embedded as part of the document. If we refer to the ordinance in the document, we just say the ordinance. It's not, if something changes here, it's not going to outdate the document as a whole. And then there's some maps, the map that everyone is familiar with. There may be additional maps that the town, the city adds after a while, and they'll go there as well. And this is this is actually fairly new guidance from the Park Service regarding the flood risk reduction. This was new for us. We did a lot of research and found a document that gives some guidance on how to deal with those situations in hurricanes, and how to deal with sites and structures that are in those flood zones. And then again, like I mentioned in the beginning, a bit about maintenance, which again, I know you don't regulate, but it's helpful for the public, and it may come up in a meeting as well, so it'll be helpful to you all. So that was a really quick, really fast run through them. I am happy to take questions if you want to talk about a specific guideline, or if you have any other questions. We're happy to answer anything that you guys might have.
Okay, before we go on to the questions and stuff, I wanted to first say, Michelle, I did not mean to offend. I value your input. You have a great deal of expertise.
I did not take offense at all.
Okay, well, I wanted to make sure that was clear.
No,
I value every one of our board members, and we each have our own expertise, and I know you're really good with this. So let's open up the questions of the board, comments or questions at this time. If you want to ask more questions of Sarah, please feel free to do so.
I have a couple, but I don't want to take long. It's just 2. Question, I'm sorry, on the windows. Is there a way, because we listed like Anderson, Marvin, Weather Shield, which are not big brands in Florida. Could we add a couple of local options? Because when people are researching, we want to give them the tools to go to the right areas. You know, those
Yeah,
three
I
are,
remember-
those three are great historical ones. I get why you put them in there because they're good wood windows. But
Right.
most customers aren't going to be able to afford that here.
So, I remember you put that comment in. So what are ones that are more, I'm not familiar with ones.
I could get you a few different ones that
Okay.
I could shoot them to Pat.
Because and I remember seeing your comment. My husband is actually an architect, and I said, do you know any window like manufacturers in the South? And he's like, oh, and he like listed the same ones. So I wasn't aware that there were different. I mean, we do list those because they do historical windows, but they also, at least where we are, they do regular windows as well, like non-wood windows. So
yeah, Anderson's a good one, and that would, because Anderson also does vinyl. And they do a vinyl window. Obviously they do vinyl clad, but and they're getting ready to do a hurricane window. I would suggest maybe like a Window World. I'm trying to think of the other guy. There's a couple that are Florida and that are made, and those are the ones that do the strange colors, and they do all the light configurations. I can shoot that to Pat. I just have to pull it.
okay.
Just maybe we could add those with it.
I have a question, Michelle and Sarah. When you're looking at those historical windows that have the ropes in them, I don't know what they're called. You know what they're called, but you're talking about replacing that with vinyl, or the old guidelines said restore those if it was a possibility to restore it over putting vinyl. So I'm kind of confused.
Yeah. So again, the first option is always to restore a wood window. If that's what can be done, restore the wood window. If it cannot be restored, the next option is to look for a replacement. And that's where we're not as concerned whether it's vinyl or aluminum versus how it looks ultimately in the building. If the configuration of the panes is correct and matches, that's more important. How is it going to look holistically as a whole once they're in the building versus what the actual material is?
Yeah, unfortunately, nobody makes a window like that anymore. And that's what I have in my house too, believe me. I'm restoring and maintaining all the time. But
yeah, it's a lot of work. We used to live in a 1920s bungalow that had all wood windows, and before we sold it, my husband reglazed all of the ones that enclosed the porch, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, and that's probably why I'm more passionate probably than most are on windows, is because, you know, right now I'm dealing with, it's been 100, feels like 100 out there, and I've got the old windows. They're beautiful and they've been updated as best they can, but it's hot. So I think a lot of people too would be looking for energy efficiency, would be looking for hurricane, security, that kind of thing. Just making sure that we gave them those options and that information. So my second question was just a note on page 104. You've got an incorrect address still.
Oh, okay.
It's one of the diagrams or pictures. 104, next one.
Oh, sorry, one page off.
Yeah, right there, the bottom one, figure 88. That's 36 North Spring.
36 North Spring?
Yeah,
okay.
That's my house.
Oh, awesome. I guess you know.
That is definitely my yard in my wall, but that is not my address.
Guess you know that is what it is then.
Oh, that's good.
That's perfect. We can change that. That's easy. Sorry about that.
Hey, no problem. I was just looking at my other notes. I think you answered everything else.
Does anyone else on the board have a question?
Yeah, I'd like
Please.
to,
Go ahead.
I'd like to ask, I'd like to ask a couple questions. Let's go back to the styles.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm at like the address. I've got a minimal traditional house.
Okay.
Okay, and minimal traditionals in this area are mainly wood vernacular. You know, what you have on page 76 is not what
Mhm.
we have here. This is more a Tudor. The traditional, minimal traditionalists will take on the styles of the area. You know, different areas you're going to have classified as a minimal traditional, but it'll be a different looking house. It'll be small. It'll have a lot, all the minimal traditional type stuff, but the detailing and stuff like that is the style in the area. So I'm just wondering if there's any way you can tie in the wood vernacular with the local minimal traditional houses. Okay.
Well,
Another
sorry, go
problem
ahead.
another problem we have with that is, you know, they were originally designed, built as minimal. In other words, there was a bare minimum house. So if you wanted to add something to it, you have a hard time. You know, if you try and stay with the minimal traditional,
Right.
because they're there. You know, you had 3-room, 4-room, and 5-room houses, and that was it. So what I'm saying is, maybe we need to make it a subset or something like this of a wood vernacular to give people a little bit more leeway on what they can do with a small house.
Well,
See what I'm saying?
I do. I'm going to challenge you a little bit. And that you're right. The minimal traditional, I mean, it is what it says. It's minimal. There is no fancy decoration. There's no porches. It's very simple. I have not seen it where minimal traditional reflects other structures in the area. They're always very simple. You know, a Cape Cod is a style of a minimal traditional house, and that, you know, that would be a subset of minimal traditional. They can be wood framed or a frame vernacular. But it is its own style versus it's a more modern style than a frame vernacular. It's not a subset of the frame vernacular because those historically are older.
They are older. That's correct. But what I'm saying is, like, the foundations, particularly in this area, a lot of them are pretty close. You know, they're not that much different.
Right, but if your house was constructed in 1940 versus, you know, 1900, there are going to be differences there. So you know, if you have a minimal traditional,
well,
go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, okay. But no. You're right there. It's a different construction type they use. They use a boom framing, and the minimal traditional uses a platform. You know, but for single-story houses, there's not that much difference between the two types of construction.
Right. I mean, ultimately, there's not, but they are two different styles because they're from two different time frames.
Oh, let's see. I grant you that it goes a lot further back, but there's wood vernaculars that were built in the traditional time frame. They're not two distinct ones, two distinct time frames, I'm saying.
So explain to me again how what
See, where
you're,
was that?
what you would like.
Okay,
I mean, ultimately, both
Granted,
styles
it
are
is a
covered in
certain house.
the document. So that's, do you want them
Mm-hmm.
rearranged or what are?
No, a little bit more flexibility on doing some work on a minimal traditional, like maybe in adding a room or something like this, because it is a small house.
Right. Well, I mean, you can
If you stay
definitely,
within the guidelines of, minimal
I mean,
or
there's nothing
porch.
saying that you can't add, add an addition onto a minimal traditional. I mean, there's guidelines for what to do if you're putting an addition on any sort of building, but there's nothing saying that that can't happen.
Okay. That'll work then.
Okay.
Sarah, I'd also like to interject and just say, we're also going off of the 2009 survey, which specifically called out minimal traditional as a separate style from frame vernacular. And obviously that would reflect the FMF,
Yeah,
the forms as well. So that's another reason why we're kind of calling them out as separate.
I understand, but that's not universal. In Georgia, they see it as a construction type and not a style. The Georgia Historical Society.
Yeah, and it does vary from state to state, but we try to go on whatever state you're in and whatever local area you're in. So that's why we're doing it the way we're doing
I
it.
understand.
Yep.
And so the Florida the guidelines in the Florida Historical District is to separate that and be a minimal traditional. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Caitlin?
it's a separate
Yeah, that's
style.
what she's saying. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else? Is there any more questions? Comments? Did we lose Michelle?
Oh, let's see. Hang on one second. There was one more.
Okay, you got another one, Bill?
Yeah, let me find the right page number here. Hang on a second. Oh, 106. Page 106.
Okay.
Just on docks. Okay, guideline number 20. B, sub B. Where did that come from? Do you know? Is that in the Florida guidelines, or did we
Was that in the
be in this
original?
area? I just
I don't
kind of want to
remember
know.
I don't remember if that's in the original one or if that came up
I think it's
after.
in the original one.
Sorry, what did you say?
I don't think it was in the original one.
I'd have
Where
to
is
go
the
back
question?
and pull the original. Pat may know.
I'm sorry, was this guideline 20B or guideline 19B?
20.
20B.
20B. That's the one we had a discussion about one.
Yeah, 20B came from public comment. That was
Okay, that
just public comment.
Public
Originally, we were
comment.
looking at roofs and davits. We took the davits out. But the concerns about the view of Spring Bayou. So that's where that came from. You don't have to, I mean, you all can comment on it or take it out.
That may have been whenever I was asking, how do you define that when you say people on one side of the bayou can have docks and the other side can't? That doesn't quite make any sense to me. So I
Right.
was asking about that.
Yeah, this would cover the area that's in the historic district,
Right.
not the area that's not in. Yeah.
But you've got a mix of people there. And realistically, you have 3 homeowners, and I'm one of those 3 that doesn't have one of those. But why would my neighbor have one and have it approved? And if I wanted to do one later, not have the option to be able to do that? It just, I get we want to avoid it, but maybe it should be a discussion, I guess.
I think that's when I had brought that up because it didn't seem fair to me to tell one side they could do it and the other they couldn't.
Yeah.
Well, again, within
So
the
it could be
within the
discussion,
district,
okay.
you are being consistent. So
I'm sorry, say that again, Pat.
I say again, within the district, you'll be consistent.
Okay.
If you adopt this, if you don't, then each one would come to you, whoever proposes. Roof, and I will say, I will add, I do not believe boathouses are going to be permitted by the county anyway. So we're really talking about the roofed
Yeah.
docks.
Okay.
I can't say for sure, but I think that's the case.
Okay. Thank you, Pat.
Could we, so for 20B, could that say instead of it shall be avoided, what else could we say to where we could apply for it? We're talking about three houses. So how do those three?
How would you reword that?
Those
Yeah.
three homeowners, would they just apply anyway? How would that work?
Yeah, I mean,
But
that's
when
something
it says shall be avoided, but doesn't say you can't do it, correct? I mean, it could come before the board and say, the other
Yes.
two have it, why can't I?
Yeah, so this comes back to Sarah's point. These are guidelines. They are not regulations.
Okay.
So anybody can apply for anything that they want. There's no, the city has to accept, if somebody applies for something, even if or regulation, they have the right to come, apply, and ask for something, even if they know the answer is going to be no, because they could appeal something. So yeah, if you say shall be discouraged, or even if you take this all the way out, you know, then or leave it in. They could apply, and then you all would judge each individual application.
And then on D, where it says piers and docks shall be the scale appropriate of the character of the historic district, is there a certain scale, or are the ones that have the docks, are they all consistently the same?
There is a rule, and that you have to apply and stay within that square footage rule. I don't know exactly what it is, but when we redid ours, we left it the exact same size so that we would not have to go through an approval process again to avoid that rule. I know that goes through a different department of the city, Pat.
Okay, because I was wondering whether or not that scale would be listed in the historical guidelines, or if that goes to the building. I don't know where that goes. So if somebody applied and wanted it, and we say apply it to scale, do we reference them back to the other board that handles the scale and design of that? Or does it need to be in this document so we know what the scale should be?
We can, on individual doc applications, we can provide that at the time of the application.
Okay.
You know, this is just in here so that, and I believe the square footage is regulated again by the county and the state.
Okay.
This is just in here, you know,
As a
in
guide.
case there are scale concerns that again, are judged in the context of the historic district, not in the context of a state, you know, regulatory agency that has no standards for the historic district.
Okay.
And just to build off a little bit what you were saying or asking, Laura, that when you're when we say scale, it's not a set number, it's not a set percentage, it's not a set length versus depth or height. It is in relation to what's pre-existing. So that's just kind of keep that in mind also when people are coming to the board and they're talking about scale, or they're presenting something new. It's the dimensions of whatever is being constructed in relation to what is there or what is present throughout the district on average.
Okay. I guess that's what I was wanting to know, whether or not it would be in our guidelines, but Pat kind of answered that. When they come in to do the application, that can be referenced into that.
Mhm.
Hey, Laura, the one that we did approve, I understood that I didn't realize it when we approved it, but they were asking for a variance to go larger than what they were permitted, and that goes through a different department.
I didn't realize there was asking for a variance for that either.
Yeah, I guess because it's not really, it's like you said, it's a proportion or whatever that size is. The county or the city or whoever that is the person that regulates that sizing. So they won't approve it if, it doesn't meet their standards.
Mhm.
So we really only the look, or like I think what Sarah was trying to say, the proportion of what that sheds or that roof was going to look like in relation
in comparison to the others
Yeah.
around there. And that's what bothers me, because on a house at 301, whatever that was, they told us at the meeting that it was going to be to scale. It wasn't going to be an eyesore, and it is.
And that's not what I mean by it. It could be their dock itself was slightly larger than what the footprint that we're allowed to have.
Okay.
And it may be minimal, but I do know they had to apply for a different variance on it, but it had nothing to do with the roof structure. I'm talking about they're talking about square footage area.
Okay. That is different, because somebody else at that meeting had said, well, what if their roof on this deck is going to block my view? So that played into my questions about the scale, because I kept thinking, is some of them taller than others, or, I don't want it to look odd.
Yeah. I guess we're going to find out at some point.
Yeah. Excuse me, on the scale, I don't know, can I be heard?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Yes, on the scale, is there some way that when a person is presenting it to the board, that there should be a drawing of some type of the original structure? Because, I live next to 301, and yeah, it really, there is no such thing as scale with that structure. So I don't think it was ever presented what the house looked like compared to what the garage was going to look like. So there's got to be some way that we can distinguish that. Yeah, but anyway.
And it says, and I pulled up this Appendix A for the procedures, because the documentation for the application should be, they should be submitting drawings with the application. And if they're submitting something, an outbuilding or a secondary structure but they're not referencing the primary structure, you can ask them, do you know the dimensions of the house on the property? Because you want to make sure. I mean, that's well within your right to take that into consideration.
Right.
I mean, if it's usually even a quick sketch from an architect will have the main structure or a part of the main structure on the drawing, and then this outbuilding, the full outbuilding. So if they don't come to you with that information, I would ask them for it. Just say, all right, well, what are the dimensions of your house or the primary building on the property?
Right. Yeah. We will. Yeah. On the fencing, I've noticed there's a lot of new fences being installed. The little white plastic looking
Picket fence.
fence. And I know we have no jurisdiction over that, but that's on 103 and 104.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah.
No, it's fine. If I could spell properly, then,
Right. Yeah. Anyway, I guess we're not involved as the board for applications for fences. Is that correct, Pat?
Right now, if the fence meets the guidelines, it's a staff level approval. So you've only seen a couple, at least since I've been doing the board, that didn't meet the guidelines, and the person wanted to go to the board anyway and ask you all for it.
Mhm.
It's the only time you see it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I heard it was only a rumor that a neighbor wanted to put in a wrought iron fence, and he was turned down. He was told he had to put in the white picket fence. I don't know if that's true or not. I just heard that via the grapevine. And I think the wrought iron would be a whole lot better than white picket. Oh, I got a cat. Yeah. I haven't fed her yet. Anyway, it's that I don't know if that was true or not, but anyways, that's something that we should be concerned with. Yeah. I feel as if we should.
Sarah, I think it would help me and maybe help the board if you would maybe kind of like your explanation about the windows.
Mhm.
Like our current guidelines do say, I think I have to look, but I think for like frame vernacular and, for wood structures, that the fence shall be wood. Well, so we're looking for, like you're saying, the context, the feel of the property, maybe kind of help them with how to judge that, and that would
Yeah,
help.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And this kind of goes, like Pat said, to what I was saying about the windows. Look at the property as a whole. Look at the style of the building that's on the property. If it is a simple structure, if it is a frame vernacular or a masonry vernacular, it's probably not the best idea to have some sort of very ornate wrought iron fence. You want it to keep in the style with the dwelling. If it is a Queen Anne home, if it's something that has a lot of detail and a lot of decorative work, have a fancier fence. That's fine. You just, again, it's the bigger picture. It's how the fence plays with the building, the style of the building. If it's a simple house, have a simple fence. If it's a more decorative house, have a fancier fence. It's when you think about it, it is all very logical. I think even for people who don't have an architecture background, I think one of the examples I gave to Pat is the street next to mine has just a bunch of very small one-story ranch houses. And these people put these gigantic pillars, in front of their tiny little ranch house. And you walk by and you're like, this isn't right. No tiny ranch house ever had big pillars in front of it. It's out of scale. It doesn't look right. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for the stuff that it doesn't fit. It doesn't go as a cohesive unit.
Thank you.
Sure.
I gotta win 1 minute. Matthew.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions? Shall I wait for her to get back to make sure she does not have any other questions? Or are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Go feed the cat.
Yeah. I think she's through with her questions, but I didn't want to move on in case she had another one. Do we have board comments? We'll go to there, and I'll give her a chance to ask any other questions before we close that out. Kathleen, do you have any more questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, well, let's go to the board comments. Do you have any more comments? If there's no more board comments, we're going to close that section and go to public comments. Is there any public comments? Anyone can see the raise your hand part, because I
If
can't
we
see
do
it.
have one person with a raised hand, so I'll allow them in.
Okay, thank you. Please state your name and your address, and then give us your comments.
Hello, my name is John Lalekis, and I am the current president of the Order of AHEPA located on 20 West Tarpon Avenue. The question that I have is, we are in a historic district. However, we are not considered to be a contributing member to the historic district, since we had made so many changes to this AHEPA home over the years. I would like to be able to approximation of what needs to be done and what would be acceptable, and therefore we can go out and begin to this out and see if in fact at some point in time whether we can again be a contributing member to the historic district. So I didn't know, looking at all these pages, is you've done a phenomenal job in your presentation and in all the detail, but to read this and not being having an architectural background, if you gave me a chemistry equation or physics, I could probably handle that. But this kind of stuff is way beyond me. It's a new language for me.
Okay.
I met with Patricia.
You met with Pat? Okay. Go ahead.
I did. And here again, I'd say, hey, here's the roof. We have a metal roof now, but what is acceptable? We have siding, and if we take that off, what can we place there? And the porch has been enclosed, and I know y'all would love to see, and I would love to see a porch with chairs on it, rocking chairs, etc. I know that we enclose a lot of the windows with the site, and to approach people and say, here's what needs to be done. Here's an approximate, here's what we can use, and here's what we have as an approximate valuation to make this transition. That's my question. Is that something that's viable? I imagine it would take a lot of work, but I just don't know how to approach it.
Okay, Pat, do you want to comment?
Well, yeah,
What
I
would be
did,
his steps? Yeah.
Yeah, I did go over to the site, meet with John and some of the members over there. And what they have is a contributing altered structure in the district. And they have some change, they want to try to do some work on the building and have it be as close as they can, historically accurate, or even maybe try to restore some of the features of the building based on historical photography and sources. And that's what, this whole thing is about. These new guidelines are going to really give a better context for a step-by-step approach to doing that. I think, and John and I talked about the possibility of him coming before you at some point and kind of going over a list of items that they want to do and just getting some preliminary feedback. I don't really see a problem with that, even though they will eventually come to you for a certificate of approval for for their items. They may be piecemeal or all together. I think they have to raise some money to do some of the items, but you know, just as an overall, and tell you a little bit of the history of the property. It's an interesting property and that sort of thing. You know, they need to
Pat,
help.
can I just ask what the address is?
Basically, the address.
Yeah, what was the address again?
It's Tarpon. Let's see,
Or
John.
John?
Wherever you are,
John,
it's West Tarpon.
Yeah.
is John still on?
Isn't it like two buildings?
He said it was
around the corner?
20 West Tarpon is the address.
Oh,
Okay.
Thanks, Kim. But yeah, so they really need the help of a professional in order to start making this list and as far as determining what the costs will be. That's something that would be where this board would, you know, you'd have to stop there. They need an architect or a contractor to help them with those costs.
So do you know, Pat, if there's a Florida master site file for that building?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's where you want to start then. Oh, I see it. I just wanted to pull it up on Google to kind of get an idea. So you want to start with that Florida master site file. That'll give you the style of the building. And then once you take that style, then you want to go to the design guidelines and read the section about that style, and you can get an idea of what sort of characteristics the building should have. You know, just by looking at it, you know, it would not have originally had an enclosed porch with all of those awning windows. That little part that sticks out in the center on the second floor obviously it was either a little porch or it had some fenestration, a window or a door or something at some point. So there's definitely, the first step is to pull that master site file, make sure the style is right. And then from there, do research about that style through the design guidelines or on your own and figure out, okay, well, we have money to replace the windows. What kind of windows should I put in? We have money to redo the siding. What kind of siding is normally on this style of house? So you take it piecemeal. If you think about it as one whole project, you'll get very overwhelmed, especially if you don't have the background. I don't know if John is still on the phone, but hopefully. Oh, okay. Does that help at all? Is that?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we're going to have to start top down because we have so many leaks with the roof, and so that's where we need to start. However, like you said, where the HEPA sign is in the front, there was at least 5 to 7 windows there that were enclosed, and that certainly takes away the charm of the building. So we want to open that up at some point in time as well. But money is an issue, and so that's why we're going to have to do it piecemeal. And that's why I wanted to know, because a metal roof these days is so expensive. And I didn't know what other options would be acceptable, so that we're not going to proceed and do something that isn't within the guidelines for our site. Thank you.
Right. And I think that there are bigger things to focus on than the roofing. If the roofing needs to be replaced with a shingle roofing, and then ultimately you're able to open the porch and restore that second story, that's going to make a bigger difference to the appearance of the home than the style of the roof. Again, you're looking at the house holistically. So, not to overuse that word, but
it is a fabulous looking building. You know, it just is fabulous looking.
You can tell it was something at one point.
Yes, it was. Thank you.
Sure.
John,
Okay.
do you have any further questions on that? Okay. Is there
I
any
do not.
other?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And is there any other participants that are wanting to speak or have a question? I can't see the screen where it says raise their hand.
At
So if
this time,
someone-
we do not have any other raised hands.
Okay. So we're going to we're closing the board comments, we're closing the public comments, and we're going to go to the staff comments. Pat,
Okay.
Kim, whoever.
Yeah. Okay. I would just like to say that I am very excited about this document. I think that to you guys' point and some of the things you've been asking for, I think over the next few months, we will, this document will be a jumping off point for us to try to have a little bit more robust program is what I am hoping for. Take a look at our application, go ahead and round out that application so that you are getting the information that you need on these projects. This document is more procedural and contextual, I guess, as far as the approach. Like you just said, with the wood windows, document, what is the problem with the current windows? Make sure all that is documented. So that, even though like you all said, wood windows are very difficult to maintain, but still you need the background from the applicant to make your decisions. So I'm hoping we can round out the process. I think you'll see a change in staff reports under the guidelines that get to the individual sections in this document and call out by number the guidelines that we're using in the staff report. So that will help. So I think this is a great jumping off point for trying to make our program a little more robust and responsive to the needs of the city and to the applicants, and also clear for the applicants to know what they need to do and what they're doing. As you know, we do have architects and contractors, but we have a lot of individuals who come and do these on their own. So other than that, so tonight we're just going over this document. We are, this is a final draft, and we'll be taking your suggestions and comments that you've had and do the final document. I know I went through it. There's one or two typos, which I will, have corrected and everything. So hopefully this will be done. And our state grant will end this month. So then we will be going to adoption. So I was hoping to be able to adopt by the end of the grant and the consultant contract, but we were looking to possibly try to adopt at a live meeting. I was hopeful that might happen soon. You guys know as much as I do as far as this goes. Right now, it just, we have had no word on having live meetings again. But what will happen now is this document will come back to you for adoption, and then it will go to the Board of Commissioners. And we will adopt, as Sarah mentioned, the portions that are the guidelines. They'll be adopted by resolution. The other portions, such as the architectural styles or the appendix, the maps, things like that, staff can update at any time. Those are really informational items. They're not guidelines adopted. So we'll be bringing that back. And so until we bring that back, you will be using your current guidelines. We do have a couple applications for your next meeting, but we will be under the current guidelines until the Board of Commissioners adopts this set of guidelines.
And Pat, will this help you in when the applicants come in and they've got something that maybe needs a little bit more of an expert opinion in historical expert instead of just a general contractor or whatever, would that help you to advise them to seek out someone who is qualified in historical renovations and that kind of thing and require that on the application?
I don't know that we can require it, but yeah, we do encourage
Okay, you can encourage or suggest.
assistance. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know all of you have done a great job on this, and there's been so much good feedback, and the emails were great, and the public's been really good on that too. And I appreciate every bit of the work that you've done. Is there anything else, Pat, you would like to tell us?
No, just that I'm excited about it. Thank you to Sarah and Caitlin so much. It's going to be good going forward. Really a big step for the city.
And then before we end it, I would like to extend Sarah and Caitlin, if they have any other thing that they feel they need to tell the board, I would like for you to do that at this time, and then we're going to adjourn.
I don't. It was great working on this with Pat and for all of you. I said to Pat this afternoon, we're really bummed that we didn't get to come down to Tarpon Springs again. It was, we were supposed to come down a couple of times and we only made it down there once. So I desperately wanted to get a Spongers t-shirt from the high school. But hopefully next time. I seem to be down in Florida a lot, so we can make it there. But we really wish you all the best of luck, and hopefully that this document will help you moving forward, and it'll help more than be a hurdle.
Thank you very much. All right, Pat, do you have any more comments? I'm going to close out staff comments.
No,
If you do not.
thank you.
Okay, we're going to close staff comments and we're going to adjourn. It is now 7:51 p.m. and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank
You
you.
all.
Thank you.
Thanks.